Gucci Side Dish with Dr. Crystal Cliff.
Food medicine isn't just how that food goes inside of you and heals you. It's how the food joins a community together, how it heals a community, how it can go back through and heal generational traumas. And there's absolutely nothing that we can do as, white colonial Americans to make up for the atrocities that we did. There's absolutely nothing we can do. And I am fully and consciously aware that I am a steward to and holding a medicine of a culture that's not my own. And even though Chinese medicine is not a closed culture, I didn't have to be born into it and I didn't have to be initiated into it to practice it. That's why I take such great care and try to honor my Taoist priest and his grandfather and the lineage that goes back to 2000 years before Christ ever walked on the earth. And so it's so important to me to do things in a right and good way and to honor everyone that made it possible for me to hold this medicine. And I know I'm holding it just for a short amount of time. But I see the medicine that you're doing, because you're not only healing people from the inside, you're not only helping with these health disparities, but you're healing this generational trauma and all of these things that occurred hundreds of years ago, that began and ended. And now you're bringing back the healing to the land, to the people, to your culture. And it's so beautiful to bear witness to. And that's why I wanted to speak to you. I'm blown away by what you're doing, and I'm so deeply impressed. And you are food medicine, and it's just phenomenal to know that you exist in the world, and so heartening to hear that there are other indigenous peoples who are trying to do the same with their cultures, because it is time that everyone remember who they are, where they came from, and to embrace that. We need that. This world is so devoid of that sense of belonging and that relationship. We've lost relationship. And what I see and what I know is from these health disparities and from the White Mountain Apache land, the greatest health disparity that you guys had, at least from a 2020 report, is diabetes, secondary to obesity, and then the cardiovascular issues. And what I know from the food medicine aspect is that when you have anyone who eats foods that are not of your DNA, not of your cultural heritage, then your body will see that as a foreign pathogen. And it will either see it as something that it needs to wall off and create inflammation about, and then eventually become an autoimmune disorder, or it sees it as a vibrational resonance that it doesn't quite align with. And the body, the organs have to work really hard to try to function with that vibrational energetic that is not of its DNA, not of its knowing, and not of its culture. And the only way to heal is to eat the foods of your culture. And if you can eat it from the land, grown on the land of the place that you come from, that your DNA was composed of, the healing mechanism of that is absolutely rapid. So I am hoping that someone is doing research and studying the results of all the work that you're doing, and that, I believe his name is Clayton Harvey, that all the work that he is doing as well, to see the change in these health disparities. Because I just know through my doctorate, my focus was food insecurity, and particularly diabetes and then resulting kidney transplantation. That was my major focus. And I see that happening there on the White Mountain land, Apache land. And I'm really curious. I really hope and see that the food that you're providing for people is going to really shift their health in a tremendous way, and have the ability to realign and have their organs come back online and have their bodies function in the beautiful way they were intended before colonialism and everything that we did forced them to stop consuming their foods and the foods that were wild crafted and wild gathered and eaten. And it just absolutely floors me. One of the quotes that my Taoist priest, Master Jeffrey Yuen, has always said is that to change your life, you must first change your food. And then we know that to the opposite to be true. We've seen it happen, that the way to decimate a people is to remove the food source. And so I'm so thrilled to see that you and others are bringing your food sources back, because I want your health disparities to decrease. I don't want there to be a need for any research. I want to see the thriving of all people, and I'm really deeply impressed by what you and others are doing. So thank you for that. Thank you for your dedication. It's beautiful. It's absolutely mind blowing. And it makes the rest of us, and what I hope when people hear this information from you, I hope that they have an awakening and an understanding and start realizing that we owe a tremendous amount to the indigenous peoples. And I loved your quote where on the Netflix or on the documentary that said that 70% of the food products that we're eating today comes from indigenous peoples, even like the Swiss chocolate and these things that we think of as coming from other countries is actually indigenous people. And that really got me thinking. And I really hope that people that hear this will really start to look at food differently. And that's my whole aspect, or my whole quest with this food medicine channel with Gucci to go. And Gucci is the food energy that we get from the food, and the drink is to begin looking at food a different way, not as something to just be taken in because we need to get through the day, but having that relationship with it and understanding that, we need to give gratitude for this food, for the jobs that were created along the way, for the origin source of this food, whoever that was, and for the willingness of whoever discovered these plant medicines and these plant foods to share that with those of us or our ancestors that arrived here and had no clue what we were doing. We had no idea how to live in this environment. And it was only through the generosity and only through the compassion of the indigenous peoples that lived here that we survived. And it's time for those of us we need to turn around, and we need to give some gratitude and some thanks and some uplifting and some help. And we owe a lot. We owe a lot. And it's time for us to take 100% accountability and responsibility for what happened and what we're doing, and step out of the way and support you and others on what you're doing, because that's the only way that we're going to heal. And I believe that so much can be healed from the passing of a bowl, the energetic and passing of a bowl of a food, sitting around a table together, sharing stories, bringing back these stories that are passed down in the lineage and in the family, and remembering who you are through and over this bowl of food and these stories and these shared experiences. I believe that those moments can begin to be a balm for the brokenness, for the shattering that we've caused. And I believe that we can use those bowls of food and that moment of sharing and sharing of stories to start crossing these fault lines that we have placed everywhere. And I believe food is the way to heal. Food medicine is the way to heal. Food is the way to heal all of the hurt. It's the first medicine we ever experience. It's the least invasive thing that we can do for ourselves 3 to 6 times a day. We can heal ourselves through food. And I really, really, really hope that people hear your story and the story of others and start looking at food differently and start giving gratitude and lifting up some thanks and some gratitude for your people and other indigenous peoples for getting us here where we are. So from me, thank you. Personally, thank you.
Yeah, I think there's quite a bit there, and I think so much of what the kind of the journey that I've been on, you see it I didn't learn about decolonization or indigeneity or like health disparities or substance abuse and recovery concepts through university. It was by following the food. It was the foods, native foods, that brought me to the doorstep of decolonization.
Right.
It was foods that brought me to, so, get a basic understanding of epidemiology and how research has impacted our people as a tribe.
Yes.
How learning about so much colonial violence through a lens of food has really kind of helped to shape my perspective now as a clinician. Because leaving Sunrise, the hotel, there were some choices to be made. I had offers to go to the East Coast and go to the Northwest, or to Cali, to set up shop and do something. But I didn't feel like it was, at least for me, the most meaningful. I felt like if I went to the East Coast or to the West Coast, I would be feeding mostly non-native people. And I felt like doing that would be more performative than impactful.
Mm-hmm.
I felt it, my intuition told me that I could do just about anything and people would buy it as native foods. And that's not what I'm about. I've never really been that kind of cook. And so I feel like, being rooted and being connected, that's when the opportunity with the Rainbow Treatment Center arose. And by that time, I was already about 6 years sober. And I had, entered into a maintenance phase and sobriety phase, and had created all these new experiences. So taking the all this training and journey and trial and error to create the nutritional recovery program and create the concept of Cafe Gozhóó, it's really a distillation of lived experience,
Mm.
cultural intuition, and clinical modalities. But also really kind of walking a fine line on clinical modalities, or with clinical modalities, because so much of therapy culture is from a Western construct that's damaging to the spiritual nature of who we are.
Yes.
So the reason that we call the Cafe Gozhóó is because Gozhóó is an Apache word, and that word is used in all types of contexts, from everyday speech to laughter to ceremony to prayers. It has a whole multitude of ways to reflect beauty, health, balance, love, happiness. Um, and so, as we were searching for a word to describe or to name the cafe, kind of along the line of walking that fine line of treatment modalities and clinical jargon, and not trying to be another generation of missionaries, you know what I mean,
Mm-hmm.
not trying to recolonize through therapy culture.
Right.
That one word Gozhóó, to me, in my opinion, as a White Mountain Apache, it alludes to the fact that everything we have for recovery is already packed into our culture. If that one word Gozhóó can be used to greet someone in the morning, or put someone to rest at a grave, or to reincarnate a deity in ceremony, then there's all the other components that we need, clinical and more.